right now. Ooh, okay, right. There we go. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. There is a lot going on, so let's get right to it. You can reach out to me on Blue Sky, santitajackson.bsky.social, the Santita Jackson and Friends page on Facebook, and Santita Jackson Show here on YouTube. Hey, everybody. And of course, I'm at Santita J. I'm still on X. Let's talk about what is happening with our consumer protections. We're doing a lot of great things in Illinois, banning bad foods. But there's a lot that goes into consumer protections. And really, the biggest people in this space, our biggest advocates, have been public citizens. And I want to thank the co-president, Lisa Gilbert, for sparing some of her precious time to be with us today because uh, Liz Warren, the senator, the great senator from Massachusetts, did something really, really great. She decided that, we've got to formalize the protections for people who have been scammed and who these companies have refused to pay. We've all had bad experiences, right? The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, well, that's one of the bureaus created by Congress. They're the only entity of our government that's empowered to do so. They're on the chopping block. And she said this is a payoff to the rich guys. What say you, co-president Lisa Gilbert of Public Citizen?
Well, thanks so much for having me. And you said it very well. The CFPB is the main U.S. agency that is tasked with overseeing financial products and services used by everyday Americans, by you and me, credit cards and checking accounts and home loans. And it has become the latest target of the Trump administration's efforts to remake the federal government, to take away the things, the protections, the programs, the agencies that we all care about and depend on. So we're very concerned about this, and I'm happy to talk more about it today.
But I mean, upon what basis? They said that there's waste, fraud, abuse, and what they uncover is waste, fraud, and abuse. And you can always have accounting errors, but it seems like there's something more profound at play because you have oligarchs overseeing the people who oversee the oligarchs.
That's right.
Do I have it right?
I think you do. I mean, the goal of the CFPB is consumer protection. And obviously those that are regulated by it don't want it to be in place. I mean, one part of the story that's not getting told enough is that Elon Musk is attempting to turn X into a payment processor. He's partnering with Visa. That would mean that the CFPB is his regulator. So it's suspect that this is one of the agencies that he wants to delete, as he said in his social media account. And certainly, what it's for is protecting regular people. It is not for helping tech bros. It is not for helping those that will be regulated by it.
Well, before you go, let me ask you this. Does it not concern you that there at least appears, I don't know all of the details, but certainly it appears that this is a conflict of interest when the person who oversees by fire, I mean, and it's the inspectors general.
Yep.
And we're saying all these people who have oversight over the abuse, they're being removed from government. But specifically this agency, because this is how citizens this is how corporate America can make things right, or the government can force corporate America to make things right for us.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, this agency is hugely important. It was put in place after the 2008 crash when, those in government, you mentioned Elizabeth Warren, recognized, not in government at the time, but recognized and put forth the idea that there should be a dedicated agency for regular Americans when it comes to protecting them in their mortgages or their credit cards or their student loans, to not be taken advantage of by predatory lenders. So it is hugely problematic for all of us that this agency, if it's not there, it's a vacuum, it's a void. And the conflicts point you raise, it's exactly what I was saying about him becoming a payment processor and wanting his regulator not to exist. It's appalling. It is a conflict of interest. It benefits him financially to have less rules on the books around payment processing. And it's, as you said, of a similar vein, similar thread to what we're seeing across government with the firing of the head of the Office of Governmental Ethics, with the doing away of inspectors general who look at fraud and abuse and efficiency, with loosening up foreign registration, lobbying regulations. Everywhere they're doing things that are ethically suspect, and Elon Musk is the worst perpetrator and the worst offender.
Well, you know what? I think we need to call our congresspersons because they have oversight, but I saw them taking the letters off of the US aid agency. I mean, they're just taking everything apart, but they're not authorized to do that. Lisa Gilbert, co-president of Public Citizen. They're not authorized to do this, and yet they have their hands and their eyes on our money, our social security numbers, our tax information, our banking information. What would you recommend that we do?
Well, I'll leave you with the fact that Public Citizen has been suing up a storm. You are right to say that they are not allowed to do this. It is legally not permissible, and thus far, as we've sued on, Doge's access to Treasury payments information or on USAID's disillusion, courts are siding with us, putting in place temporary restraining orders and stopping some of these bad actions, at least temporarily, while we move forward to argue the cases. Because we're right, because this isn't within the power of the executive. Congress creates these agencies, and you cannot unilaterally do away with them. So we will pursue that everywhere we can. Legal strategies are playing a huge part, and they need to be coupled with mobilization, with people calling their members of Congress, with people talking about this, and what a contrast it is to what Trump ran on. This is not helping regular people. It's actually the exact opposite.
Well, I can't wait to have you back on because we need to know what our rights are as consumers, and because I think that is something that you all do that so ably in terms of defending our rights. And this agency, this department, has saved us or gotten us recompense more than $20 billion.
That's right.
And we need that. And so I'm so glad that you were with us today, and I cannot wait to have you back. Thank you so much. If you'd like to have a closing thought before you go.
Just that I've been happy to be here. I think although it is a 5-alarm fire, we are working to put it out, and it's folks like your listeners that we need to help us do it.
Absolutely. And please support Public Citizen because they are supporting us. Their co-president, Lisa Gilbert. Thank you so much. Blessings to you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Hey, we're talking about these pardons, and we're talking about, my goodness, I don't even know where to begin. Pardons. The Department of Justice has decided to stop an investigation into the mayor of New York. And some people are saying that this is blatant corruption. We're seeing Governor Rod Blagojevich of Illinois, who served his time, who has now been pardoned. And many people always wondered, I certainly, as someone who is, I'm an Illinoisan, I always wondered, why he was put in prison anyway, because he hadn't committed a crime. They caught him before he could do that. So that having been said, it really helps us to see just how politicized these arrests, indictments, pardons, commutations, all of this is. That it's, people say it's political, it's partisan. It really is quite subjective. So let's talk about it with this all-star panel. We're going to have Chrissy Greer, who you see on MSNBC a lot. Of course, one of her colleagues in television land, of course, is the brilliant attorney C.K. Hoffler from Court TV, past president of the National Bar Association, the largest and oldest Black bar association in the world. And of course, she is the chair of Rainbow Push. There's so much that she's been doing. T.O. Hardeman, former governor, gubernatorial candidate in the great state of Illinois. And of course, he has his book, Interrupting. That's right. Come on, T.O.
Interrupting Gun Violence, the Public Health Approach. Okay, that's the book here. And my second book, Death of an Addict, Resurrection of a Man, will be out next week, published on Amazon. Okay.
Thank you, T.O. We are so proud of him. I saw him reaching for it. I said, he's reaching for this book, so let me stretch this out. Dr.
Right.
Sean Latrice, community psychologist, of course, making noise for change. Let me start with you, Attorney C.K. Hoffler. First, explain what a pardon is. Because you have the president has the power to pardon, and I would imagine the governor has the power to pardon as well, right? And if it's a state offense, that would be the governor's wheelhouse. But if it's a federal offense, it's the president's. That is as far as I am going with this. And everyone, yes, I'm wearing a hat because I ran in here from the office so I could do this for you. So I look like a babushka. But I don't know what my hair is going to look like under here. So I said, let me leave this on my head. Attorney C.K. Hoffler.
Well, good afternoon. First of all, it looks great on your head, so we don't need to say anything. You look glamorous as always, very classy. And it's cold. I'm in New Brunswick, New Jersey. And it's cold, but I just escaped the snow in Washington, D.C. But this whole idea about what is a pardon, what is a commuting of a sentence, because they're two different things in the federal system. And we can also talk about in the state system, but on a state level, that's different, because when you have a federal pardon, that is the president who pardons. We know that President Joe Biden, on his way out, pardoned a number of people, including his son, and he was very creative with his pardons, but he didn't pardon as many people as one would have hoped or expected. And then there's some, and when he became president, he pardoned a number of people. Well, President Donald Trump has pardoned people in his first 2 or 3 days, actually 24 hours. He pardoned all of those people who were, and commuted their sentences as well, who were convicted of crimes based on the activities of January 6th, the insurrection. All of those people were released and were pardoned. So what does it mean? When a sentence is commuted, that means if you're serving a sentence in a federal penitentiary, let's look at it on the federal level, that means that the president can come in and commute the sentence, meaning reduce the sentence, eliminate the rest of the time that you have to serve, and you are released. So that's a commuting the sentence. That's when you hear that. A pardon is something different. A pardon is when it's as though the crime that you allegedly committed did not exist. So that's a very, very different thing to do. A lot of times there's a commutation of the sentence and a pardon at the same time. And other times there's just a commutation of the sentence and then a pardon comes later. And that's what we saw with the governor. Now that's on a federal level. On a state level, for certain crimes, not all crimes, for certain crimes, a governor can also do something very similar. So that's, in a nutshell, layman's terms, what it means. Remember, there's a state system, federal government, federal prosecutors, and then that's on the federal level. Then on the state system, you've got state prosecutors. You've got the state, whatever state you're in, and the head of that, the CEO, the chief, the commander-in-chief is the governor, just as the commander-in-chief, and I'm just giving you an analogy, on a federal level is the U.S. President of the United States.
I needed to know that because now Governor Rod Blagojevich has been pardoned. Of course, we're going to bring on Professor Chrissy Greer. You see her on MSNBC. She has her own podcast. What is it? FAQ New York City. So we want to hear what they're thinking about New York. And I'm sure you've got your thoughts too. So, because a lot of people are shocked, or they're surprised. They're shocked, but not surprised that Mayor Eric Adams has been, as he's running for mayor, the investigation, many people felt that he was going to be prosecuted. The investigation has been ended from the Department of Justice. It lets you see just how, CK, before I go to UTO, it is really a subjective system. I mean, on many levels, that's what I see. I've always said all these prosecutions and indictments are very political. They're politicized because I see the people they overlook, right?
Well, certainly. I mean, it's political on the one hand. There are literally hundreds of thousands of African-American men and women that sit in jail that did much less than those that were involved in the insurrection on January 6th, who are in jail, who are not going to be pardoned, whose sentences will not be commuted. And so that's the reality. So to the extent that you see an inequity there is a political dynamic to it. And our president did say that one of the first things he was going to do was he was going to let all those people who were involved in the January 6th and who were, in his mind, wrongfully arrested for freedom of speech in his mind, should be, their sentences should be commuted. And that's exactly what he did within the first 48 hours. So it is political in that sense, but let's understand that, like all politics, color in general, race and other things are infiltrated in there. Now, for the activities of January 6th, it really didn't matter what color you were, because there were some people who were Black and brown involved in that, and they were pardoned and released, all of them. But as a general proposition, you're not going to see the same, even with the pardon and commutation of sentences, you're not going to see a level playing field where the same thing that you see for African Americans applies to non-African Americans or for white people who are incarcerated. And it has nothing to do with the severity of the crime, the kind of crime. It's a pardon. It's a commutation of sentence. But you don't see the playing field being level in that respect. It's very political.
Not at all. Not at all. Theo Hardeman.
Oh yeah. I
Now,
concur.
talk to me. What do you think when you heard that, that former governor, Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich, who was convicted, as NPR writes, of corruption-related crimes, and they said he was selling Barack Obama's seat. As I read it, I never quite understood. I've always felt this was, quite frankly, I felt this was political, and they were making a point with him, because before he could sell the seat, they arrested him.
Right.
So he didn't commit the crime, technically.
I truly believe that Blagojevich was railroaded. He kind of talked a little too much. I must say that.
What do you mean?
I listened to some of the tapes that they played, during the investigation. He ran off his mouth too much about everything, and everything. That doesn't mean he broke the law, though.
Mm-hmm.
They caught him before he could sell the seat. So Blagojevich being pardoned, to me, was a good move. I'm not against it in any kind of way. The same way Biden pardoned his son. Blagojevich, out of all the people, he was a pretty good governor when he was in office. A lot of people still love and respect him for whatever reason. So that's a step in the right direction, because he did not deserve to be. He went to, like, what you might say a place where they send political guys. It was like a real decent type of federal work camp type of place. According to him, he met a lot of friends, or whatever the case may be. But I think his ego got in the way a little bit when he was the governor, because he was on them phones talking about stuff he should not have been talking about. All right. But that doesn't mean he's a bad person. But like CJ Hoffman was saying, the thing about it, there's a preponderance of evidence that dictates a lot of African-American people do not get a second chance when it comes to the pardon system. So that's the sad irony about everything right there. That's the sad irony about it, Santita, when it comes to African-American people. So I'm hoping that President Trump can look at maybe pardon a few more African-American people out there in the universe. I don't have to bring a lot of the names up right now, but there are African-American people that, like H. Rap Brown, I'll bring his name up for a second here. I don't know all the particulars of his case, but he changed his name. He has a Islamic name now, H. Rap Brown, a blast from the past, solid guy. I always bring up other people's names. I won't bring them up right now, but the point is, people that deserve pardons, a lot of them not getting them. It's about privilege to a degree, depending on the color of your skin. I understand, what happened on January 6th. The Proud Boys, you had some African-American people that were Proud Boys, and some of the people that actually were involved in the insurrection riot. That was a different set of circumstances, but I'm talking about people that have been locked up for 20, 30, 40 years now that should receive a pardon, even because of the fact a lot of people that's a bigger question in corrections as well, federal and state, what to do with an ailing population. You have a lot of these guys that are locked up, they're over 70 years old now, a lot of them are. And why not pardon some of them individuals and let them return to society? They paid their dues, as long as they're not like mass murderers or nothing like that. So that's what I feel about. Well, that's what I believe when it comes to the pardon of Blagojevich.
Well, particularly the '94 crime bill, which everybody agrees is a disaster, and these people should not be in jail. I mean, you have people now selling marijuana; they're getting rich.
Yes,
and there are people who are in prison because they sold a marijuana cigarette. I mean, really?
But that's another disparity there. And I'll tell you something, in the state of Illinois.
While others out are pardoning, do not pass these folks by. How about that part?
Well, that's what I'm talking about as well.
Santita, Right. Santita, we talked about this on your show previously, how one of the things that we were hoping that President Biden would do, just kind of level as you're going out. I mean, who's going to challenge or question it? He has the power to do it. Take that, especially because he was so involved and engaged in the crime bill. And don't get me wrong, I think there were a lot of wonderful things that President Biden did. There were during his term. But this was something that he really could have and should have done. He could have pardoned more people. I don't have the list of the people he did pardon. And people just talk about the fact that he pardoned, his family as well. He was going to, and as well he should have.
Wait a minute, his entire family.
Right. That's why I said his family. I didn't say
No. Wait. While Trump was speaking, he did it before he could technically, while he was still technically the president.
Of course.
I mean,
right.
I just have to horseshoe that in, only because you got all these people stacked up in these prisons from the '94 crime bill,
Federal crimes.
and federal crimes that his son would have gone to prison for. Because if you buy an illegal drug, you've committed a felony.
Mm-hmm.
He pardoned him.
Mm-hmm.
He got him rehab. That grace and that pardon, if you will, has not been extended to anyone else. And he has said nothing about that going out the door. And that to me is me feeling some kind of way.
Well, we all feel some kind of way about, well, not all, but I feel some kind of way about
do.
it too. Because that was, of course, I could say this sitting where I'm sitting, but it seemed like a no-brainer to me. But that, and so when we talk about pardoning and commuting the sentence, in general, I think it's a good thing because it can make a wrong right. It can level the playing field.
Yeah.
But the caveat is it just does not typically apply to Black folks. Let's just be very clear. And that is not to say that there weren't a lot of Black folks whose sentences have been commuted and have been pardoned. Kwame Kilpatrick, I have to say, he was a client of mine, and former Detroit Mayor Kwame Kilpatrick, President Trump during his previous term at the end, he commuted his sentence. So I mean, I think
And I was fine about it.
Right, and I think that's the right thing to do. Of course, I'm biased because he is a client.
Well,
but
he's a friend of mine, and I felt that his prosecution and persecution was political.
Absolutely.
And that for me, that's a problem. And I just need, and even Rob Blagojevich, like you said, Tio, he talked too much because what he did was he pulled back the covers on this nasty process. If a seat in the House of Representatives is vacated, you must have an election. But the Senate is the world's most exclusive club. It is something they just started getting elected 100 years ago.
Yes, indeed.
These were appointments. So I mean, and he said, "Look, I'm really gonna make you mad. I'm putting it out there. I'm gonna appoint someone y'all don't like, Jesse Jackson Jr." And I knew then my brother was going to prison. Yeah, I put it there. I'm not afraid to do that. And I mean, the whole process, what this process is letting you know that this is just a nest. Before I bring up Professor Chrissy Greer, we've seen her on MSNBC. She is brilliant and she's on fire. But stay right here because all of you are. Because Dr. LaShawn Latrice, before I could even move out of my place this morning, Attorney C.K. Hoffler, she wanted to talk about this. I unprompted. Let me just bring you up. Professor Chrissy Greer. I want you to look at these people because these folks are just nutty as the day is long. But be careful, Chrissy. Professor Greer, be careful because she's a psychologist. Okay. What do you have? What say you, Dr. LaShawn Latrice?
I was one of those people. Hello, everyone. I was one of those people who was not shocked about the pardoning. I actually thought when they brought up the noise a while ago when they were saying he was going to ask him to let him out, I knew that was going to be something that was going to happen. I also saw this happening down the line, that he would be pardoned because he has tried to do a few things that he's not been able to do. And there are a lot of people that still support him. He has openly supported Trump. He has not made any sort of, secrets about that. and also how he was done, within his own party. He talked about that a lot too, and I think a lot of that spoke to why President Trump moved to do what he did. So I don't think we should really be that shocked that it happened, but it just goes to show you that there are some other things that are going to come down the pipeline that are probably going to raise some eyebrows and make people, a little bit uncomfortable. But I think we should just kind of strap in and get ready for the ride.
Well, don't be uncomfortable. I mean, the thing is, just not he didn't fall in love with Trump. Trump embraced him because the Democrats kicked him in the teeth.
That's
Let's
right.
keep it 100. Stop it. Yeah, they did. You know that, To. CK. You don't have to. You don't have to comment on it. I'm telling you, that's what they did to him, Professor Greer. And so what he ended up doing was falling in with Trump by default. That's what happened. So I mean, what? Now we've got my beloved second home, New York City. Oh, you're always making headlines. This is the headline, though. Professor Greer from Common Dreams, one of my favorite outlets. It's progressive. Everybody should support them. Order to drop charges against New York City mayor among, quote, the most openly corrupt writings I've seen on the Department of Justice letterhead. It's official, everybody. There was an investigation that many people felt was going to result in a prosecution and jail time. Well, now that's over. That's an oversimplification, but that's why I've got this brilliant professor from Fordham University and FAQ NYC. That is her podcast. And of course, you can see her on MSNBC lighting it up. She's so brilliant. Professor Greer, what happened in New York? I mean, wow.
Well, there can be several things that are true simultaneously. So when Eric Adams says, he's being unfairly attacked because he's a black man, sure, that's true. When he keeps terrible company and takes them to a second location where he never should have had half the people in his administration, that is also true. We do know that the Southern District, tried to bring down Lieutenant Governor Brian Benjamin. He resigned. It turned out to be a quasi-nothing burger. This same Southern District had cases, if you read the 57-page indictment against Eric Adams, lots of people thought it was a little thin, right? Turkish Airlines, we got a little corruption here or there. Is it run-of-the-mill white boy corruption? Absolutely. Is it right? Not necessarily, but have we seen it time and time again? Sure. So we have then people clutching their pearls saying, why would Eric Adams go to Mar-a-Lago? Why would he go to Washington, D.C.? Why would he kiss the ring of Donald Trump to try and get himself out of this jam? Who wouldn't? Let's be real. If you have an opportunity, you have a petty king who knows that he is obsessed with Barack Obama, he's obsessed with Joe Biden, he's obsessed with sticking it to the Democrats. If he could somehow get the Democratic mayor of New York City under his thumb to do his bidding, why wouldn't you? It's Donald Trump likes to make a deal. And Eric Adams painted himself into a corner, or was painted into a corner, depending on how you want to look at it. So his gamble has paid off. He's not pardoned. The charges are dropped. And when you read it, it says, and after the election, we might be able to circle back around, but it's a mutual sort of keeping folks in line. Right afterwards, Eric Adams meets with his top commissioners and says, we're not going to criticize the president, and we will not sort of stop the president from doing what he deems fit when it comes to our education policies and the immigrants that are in New York, the city of immigrants, the nation of immigrants of which we are. But there's a large concern, obviously, since we're a sanctuary city. And what does that then mean? So in many ways, the president has bought himself a Democratic mayor of the country's largest city, someone who will assist in his xenophobic, racist efforts. It is horrendous what will most likely happen to the undocumented communities, of which there are many. Black communities, Asian communities, Latino communities in New York City. We know that Black communities are hyper surveilled. So we have not just people from Haiti, but people from all over the Caribbean and Africa who will be hyper surveilled in many ways. We already have seen a dip in kids going to school because parents are concerned. We're going to see a dip in people going to the hospital because parents are scared to get their kids medical treatment for fear of being deported. We are, as Dr. Latrice said, we're in for it, right? We need to buckle up for it. And it's just like COVID. It's here, but it's not going to affect all of us in the same ways. The Trump presidency is going to hit certain people really horribly. People who work in public institutions, people from a mixed status family, the list goes on and on. But Eric Adams did what any politician will do, which is the first rule of, getting elected is to try and get reelected. And if this helps him against Andrew Cuomo, who has yet to jump in the race, former governor of New York, 3-term, son of a 3-term governor, Mario Cuomo, if it helps give him an edge, because we know that external financial PACs can still assist in this mayor's race, to help frame who Andrew Cuomo is and help keep Eric Adams in the discussion. For those of your listeners who may not know New York City politics, we have a closed primary system, so you have to be a registered Democrat to participate. Our general election is in November. However, our Democratic election is June 24th. That is 4 months from right now. So we only have 4 months to essentially decide who the next mayor of New York City was going to be. Last term, we decided that we'd use ranked choice voting with zero education for the New York City populace. So we now can vote for 5 people in a ranked choice system, but we haven't explained to voters how to do it. It's just you go into the booth and you choose 5. So we have an election around the corner, which will most likely choose the next mayor of New York City. And our turnout is so abysmal, we're barely cracking 20% of the voting eligible population. So I'll pause there.
Santita?
Oh, yes.
I am going to have to run shortly, unfortunately, but my response is, where are my heart pills? Okay, I said it.
Girl, wait. This is
where are my heart pills?
This is 2025. Don't
I know. And I say this, look, politics, we just put politics aside because many of us are not in that political space. We circle around it, but we're not in the political space. We're not elected officials and all of that. And most people in America are not in that political space, but most people in America are going to feel the impact of what this president is going to do. And some are going to love it, and some are going to hate it. Just like at the Super Bowl. Hello. So at the Super Bowl, we had 2 Black quarterbacks. Yes, 2, not 1. 2 Black quarterbacks playing against each other. We had Kendrick Lamar, who, no matter whether you love him, don't know him, don't care, his message was profound and revolutionary. During Black History Month, at a time when our president is trying to abolish, eliminate, extinguish Black history and diversity and inclusion, and make it seem as though American history doesn't include Black history. So all of this is happening at the same time. Again, where are my heart pills? Where are my pearls? But we have to just have our cloaks on and persevere no matter what. We've been in worse places. So let the politicians do what the politicians do. And whether it's a pardon or a commute, there's not a person that I know that if they were facing time in prison, not jail, few days, prison, wouldn't do what they have to do for themselves and their family to get their sentence commuted or to be pardoned. That's just the nature of the beast. That's human nature. All that we're seeing now is just because we have a new president who's flexing and who is going to do what he said he's going to do. And for people who didn't listen to him, didn't believe him, said, oh, no, he's never going to do that. Well, now you have it, because he's doing exactly what he said he's going to do.
But unlike Biden, who said I wasn't going to do this, he did it all. And he did it while Trump was about to officially become president. I mean, I just think the beauty of this moment is that the covers have been pulled back. You're seeing how this all really works. You know, CK, do you want to say anything before you go? I know I'm catching you.
Well, no, that's it. Just that I am very, as your dad always says, Santita, we keep hope alive. This is the time now where it is more important now than ever for our organizations, for our young folks, for our faith-based community to step up, stand forward. We don't need people to teach us our history. The history will only be obliterated if we allow it to be obliterated. We exist, we are, and that's it. And whether you're pardoned or your sentence is commuted, no one can be critical of someone's sentence being pardoned or commuted when, if they were in the same situation, they would try to do the same for themselves or their loved ones. Mm-hmm. That's not the issue that I have with this president. Mm-hmm. Although I do think for the January 6th activities, I take a different position, but that's not the major issue. There are a whole lot of other things that are going to impact our communities that we must counter But we must also just take stock of what's happening in our communities and be more active, use different ways to ensure that our people are educated like other communities do.
Mm-hmm.
And just turn over a new page. That's all. I mean, it's going to be tough, but we just have, this is not the first time we've been in this situation, and it won't be the last.
Well,
Attorney
CK, you know,
Oh, yeah.
CK, what I would say is, you know, I just wrote this book, How to Build a Democracy, from Barbara Jordan and Fannie Lou Hamer to
Mhm.
Stacey Abrams. And what I've been shocked at is the number of Black people who don't know who Fannie Lou Hamer is, who
Mhm.
don't know who Barbara Jordan is. And we've done a great job, you know, talking about Shirley Chisholm and her great run in 72, which planted the seeds for Jesse Jackson in 84 and 88, which planted the seeds for Barack Obama in 2008. So Shirley Chisholm is starting to get her flowers, and there have been some great, you know, books about her. And there's starting to become some books about Fannie Lou Hamer, but by and large, there's so much of our history that's being lost because these book bans aren't new. You know, we've always had book
Right.
bans and culture bans because in school, people learn about Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks, the only two people in the civil rights movement, and
Right.
then Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman, the only two people sort of during slavery times. There are thousands upon thousands upon thousands of leaders, women, Black women especially and explicitly, that are being lost deliberately. And so I think when we say that we have to hold on to our history, I agree, but I do think that there's an educational piece that we kind of have to double down on because we have this influx of information on the internet, but it doesn't seem like people are being educated.
Well, I mean, Professor Greer, with all due respect, everybody, I love you, CK.
Bye-bye.
When will you be on it? When will you be on Court TV?
Well, I've already been on Court TV. I'll be on Court TV next week, and I don't have the times. I'm sorry.
Okay, all right. We always have to ask. And of course, she's on WAOK every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, sending you so much love.
Thank you, Sam.
We talk about these book bans, Professor Greer, Dr. Latrice, and Theo Hardiman, but let me go right to you, Professor Greer. We've got a book ban in our homes. We're not reading them. Okay? And I'm saying that because, I mean, out of love. Okay? I can't talk about what they are doing because we're not emphasizing reading and education. There's a wonderful young legislator here, State Senator Willie Preston. You know, he's been there a term, and after a term, he's been there three years, just about, almost just a little more than 2 years. Now he's head of the Black Legislative Caucus. I mean, he's moving like a comet through there, and they're pushing a stuttering bill. You know, to figure out how we can educate stutterers. I said, well, you know. There was a country singer and a brilliant songwriter, Mel Tillis. And he was someone people used to kind of laugh because you see him, he had a profound southern stammer. It wasn't funny to me because my father and my brother, Congressman Jonathan Jackson, stuttered. And I knew that. So it was nothing funny to me about it, but it became part of his shtick was when he started singing, there was no stutter.
Mm-hmm.
Just because, you know, music education and music training connects both sides of the brain. There's just a whole lot neurologically that does happen. And I brought that up. And the fact that I said the cheapest way to deal with a stutter is to put them in choir in school, music education. It's just little things that we're missing. And we're missing because we're not getting library cards for our children. And we're not demanding that the internet become a public utility, Professor Greer. Mm-hmm. You shouldn't have to pay for this. And Apple is $1 trillion company. They need to give everybody, since we're giving them the tax breaks that made them $1 trillion company, they need to give every man, woman, and child a computer, and certainly our children, so they can have access to the information.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, we had that debate many years ago when Wi-Fi was coming to major cities. And, you know, it's like, how do we, you know, modernize particular communities? How do we utilize public library systems so that they are for communities, especially communities in need? But I think in this particular political moment, we're seeing a rollback since we can't afford anything, right? Mm-hmm. Instead of asking Elon Musk to pay his fair share in taxes, we have to sort of cut resources. Mm-hmm. And at least what we're seeing in New York is that we keep cutting the hours of libraries, right? We keep cutting back the ways that people could actually have more access to easier information. We make it harder for people to go to museums. We make it harder for people to have a shared space for information. Because if you think about it, especially under the guise of COVID, there's so fewer places, at least in New York, where people can actually convene and gather. Because a lot of those places were shut down during COVID, obviously, but they never really opened back up for that space. And so as we think about what is our obligation to young people, to give them that time to explore, to sort of give them that space to explore, I don't know. I do think that a lot of the adults, though, are going through it too. I mean, as I said before, like we all experienced COVID, but in very different ways. And we have not, as a community and a collective, talked about the trauma, the collective trauma we've been through. Your family may not have been directly affected by COVID, but seeing the disproportionate number of Black death during COVID has affected all of us. Knowing that, under this particular administration, this man has a particular ire for Latinos, but we do know that we're going to get the brunt of a lot of these practices, whether it's defunding the federal government or respective policies that assist us in going to public education, public universities, HBCUs, environmental practices in our communities so that we don't continue to have disproportionate numbers of asthma rates. We have a new health cabinet member who thinks that Black women have a different immune system. So like, that's why we didn't need to be vaccinated. And there's no such thing as like Black maternal health issues. So, I mean, we are barreling into the most racist kind of pre-Reconstruction era that we could have imagined. And on the one hand, it is horrendous and horrific that we're here and there are not enough, I think, quite honestly, white people who are standing up and standing against this in full-throated. But on the other hand, I do feel somewhat not afraid because I was like, well, my ancestors are stronger than his ancestors. Like, we are divinely prepared for this moment. I don't know what that preparation looks like, but I don't feel fearful of this moment. I feel like we need to just use the tools that we have, that we might have to dust off and like search through the toolbox to find them. But I do think it's like, as we were talking before, the show, it's like, I am reading interviews that your dad gave in 1969 to help guide me through this moment. I am reading, the teachings of King, not just like the famous ones that we all know. It's like, no. King wrote several books about what was going on. So it's like, I am reading those books. So we're not recreating the wheel. Like, they saw some things that we are now seeing again for the first time, but we're seeing it again.
I mean, it's like they foresaw. They said, this is where we're going. If we're trying to do things, put laws in place, create the culture so that we can avoid Dr. Latrice, T.O. Hardeman, Professor Greer. We want to avoid this. Dr. King said this is a house on fire.
Yeah.
Are we the fire? Are we going to be the firemen and the firewomen who are going to put the fire out? Or are we going to stand in the building and burn up? Part of the hopefulness that I get out of this moment is that so much that people would whisper about, Professor, Doctor, my almost Governor T.O. Hardeman, so much is being exposed. See, that to me is the beauty of the moment. It's the subjectivity of it all. So, I mean, it's because those of us who lived through the arrest of Rod Blagojevich, the governor, and he really was a fine governor, Professor Greer. He did a lot of good things for a lot of people. And when you really dug down in the case, you saw he had not committed any crime. They arrested him to shut him up and put him away. It's just he ain't gone away. He's still here, and he is a Trumpocrat, as he put it. He's like, the Democrats threw me under the bus. Black folks in Chicago say that all the time.
Yeah, it happens.
I mean, what? And we're saying it all over the country.
What happens on a regular basis, Santita? As soon as you get caught up, even though he never, committed a crime, but people just like gave up on him immediately, detached themselves away from him, ostracized him, alienated him and everything. And now, the truth, basically it is what it is. I just put it like that, but I want to just say this, if you don't mind. Donald Trump is now talking about sending repeat offenders to prisons outside the United States. And the president of El Salvador was the first in line because they had this super maximum penitentiary that houses the worst of the worst over there. I don't know if that's the best idea to send people from the United States to another country. That's just something we need to think about, what might be forthcoming with Donald Trump. But back to Blagojevich, I noticed even a lot of the politicians, I listened to the wiretaps, right? Some of the wiretap conversations he had. And one of the politicians was on there making commentary about African-American leaders, like who is a soft African-American leader based on who would be like too rough around the edges, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, mainly what I'm saying, who are some of these people to judge how African-American people carry themselves? But this one politician was comfortable with a softer version of a black man, because he said that. Well, he's he's a softer version.
Straight up, they hated Jesse. Okay,
Right, exactly.
And this politician, Professor Greer, said so.
Yeah.
They said, and Blagojevich said, I know the one person that nobody wants to be the senator is Jesse Jackson Jr. The Obama people don't want him. Pritzker doesn't want him. Everybody can't stand him because he's a little bit too strong. And I'm not talking about my brother here.
I got you.
We're talking about leadership. And, because we have leadership, and you and I were kind of easing up on this, Professor Greer. We have to distinguish between leadership that we send and the leadership that's sent to us. Because we send the strong, they send the compromised. And we don't win.
Well, because we eat our young. I mean, so when we have certain people, I mean, we can see it on the congressional level. When we say we need people to step up, you got a lot of young folks who were like, I'll step up. You got a lot of people of color who are like, I'll step up. And then the older establishment of septuagenarians and octogenarians will say, not your time. So this is how you have someone, for example, like AOC, who's like, listen, we need some sort of message, right? Democrats are feeling like they're flailing. They feel rudderless. Like, let's do it. I got the energy and, the wind behind my sails. And the larger establishment is like, no, we're going to go with someone who's a septuagenarian who has medical issues, but that's the road that we need to go on. Fine. If Democrats were winning, we could see they have a strategy. Let's run the course. We're not winning. We're 0 for I don't know what, right? And so this is.
Did you say 0 for 1,200?
I mean, I don't even know what number we're 0 for. And it's like,
excuse me, that was at 2016,
right? And I've been saying this from the full chested as a New Yorker. Chuck Schumer is not built for this moment. I said it the first time of Donald Trump. I'm saying it the second time of Donald Trump. The days of giving long speeches and saying, I can't believe it. Well, you know what, Chuck? I believe it. So either you do something or get out the way.
Did you say, wait a minute, we will win? Do you remember what that rally he was?
We will win. Sure. Well, I hope so. I don't know. I mean, maybe we should stop giving the DNC chairmanship to folks that, patronage politics. It's like, thanks for running, Jamie Harrison, and you lost. That doesn't mean you get the job of the DNC. That's not how we should run business. So I think that there is, if Democrats felt like there was a plan and a vision in place and a fight and a real like fire in the belly. And so it seems as though when we have Democratic politicians who have that, it's like, you need to sit down.
Oh my gosh.
Wait,
900,000 Democrats or 900,000 voters did not vote in New York State in 2024 in the presidential election.
Okay.
Something is going wrong.
Well, Santita, I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say this, and your non-New York listeners might be like, "She's crazy." It's like, mark my words.
No,
it is not beyond the realm of possibility that New York State has a Republican governor in 2026. If the Democrats do not organize themselves and pull it together, we could very clearly have a Republican, and I'm not just talking about like a tacky Republican who's like, oh, well, I'm talking about a Trump-loving MAGA, not even quasi-MAGA, like an anti-immigrant Republican rolling up in the state of New York. That is not beyond the realm of possibility.
Yeah, I believe you, because a lot of strange things have happened lately. But like you said, when it comes to younger people, Santita, I've seen this personally, Dr. Latrice. here in Chicago, a lot of the younger people are not treated as well by Democrats sometimes, and we have to kind of like uplift our youth and bring them in the fold, and it's not happening like it should, and it just plays out time. I've seen it happen personally. I've had to speak up for younger community activists in Chicago when I'm out on the front line, and I allow the young people to come up and speak with me. You know, that's what I do all the time. That's why I have a lot of respect from the youth in Chicago today and throughout the nation. I think Democrats need to learn that lesson. It's not always about just a made person that's been around for a long time. Uplift some people, bring some people with you. In my opinion, all righty?
Well, you know, and I'm gonna tell you, I mean, Dr. Latrice, haven't heard from you in a
Yeah.
minute. I mean, the thing is, I repeat,
Mm.
it's a refrain, it's a mantra with me now. The covers have been taken off. We
Yeah.
are beginning to see how the system really works. 14 million people voted for Biden. Now, did they want him to run? No. But the donors said, we want him out. So 14 million votes suddenly didn't matter, Professor Greer, Theo Hardiman, and Dr. Latrice. Then you stuck Kamala with Biden's team who didn't want her anyway. See, we know that now. I knew that then, but you really saw it now. So she was like in a straitjacket. She couldn't move. And people are wondering why she has word salad. She was in a salad spinner. And people, you know, I don't know why everybody thinks that people are not smart. People know what happened here. Dr. LaShawn Latrice, I got about 5 minutes left, and I'm gonna give them to y'all. I'm not gonna say anything else because I just, you know, girl, I'm sitting up here with this hat on my head because I ran in here from the office and I'm looking crazy, but I'm doing the best I can because I don't know what's going on up under here. But Dr. LaShawn Latrice, I got a minute for you.
I think it's just like the other panelist was saying. At the end of the day, if we don't wake up, we have to start paying attention. Many people are now becoming super engaged in these type of conversations, and you know, thank God for shows like this where people don't mind, you know, talking about the real raw things that need to be discussed, because a lot of the avenues and venues that are set before people are not really being honest and forthcoming with information. And I think now that things are happening that are contrary to what people ever thought would happen, I think people are paying attention now on a larger scale, but it's still up to us to still have these intentional conversations where people can become educated and pay very close attention to the things that they might need to pay attention to, instead of just, you know, shrugging them off and saying, oh, that's not my party. I don't have anything to do with it. It doesn't involve me, because now they're learning that a lot of things involve you when you think they don't.
Well, you know, I mean, and that is why, you know, I want you to go FAQ NYC podcast. You're going to get the last word, Professor Greer, because there is space now for us to tell truth,
Right.
and speak it to empower. Theo Hardiman, who got nearly 30% of the vote, Professor Greer, when he ran for governor here in the state of Illinois. He's a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant activist. And let her know your book, because she might need to get you on her show. What's the name of your book?
It's Interrupting Gun Violence, the Public Health Approach. It's on Amazon as well. So it's a pretty solid read when it comes down to, you know, the mindset, the thought process behind all this gun violence that's taking place across the United States, and how we can kind of reduce the violence as well by implementing the public health model. But I want to say this quickly, out of respect to the 150 women that were raped and burned to death in the Congo last week. I want us to always remember those women over there. I don't know why in the year 2025, atrocities like this continue to happen, but it's really insane. And I hope that the people are brought to justice that committed those crimes against humanity there. Okay.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
We need to lift up our brothers and sisters in the Congo and in Yemen and in Haiti. We've got to make space because there's a lot of pain all over the world. But still, there is hope. There is hope.
Always. Always.
Professor Christina Greer, Miss Chrissy, I am giving you the last word here, and I hope that you will come back over and over and over again.
Anytime. I do think, though, you know, in all the doom and gloom and destruction that we are witnessing on a local level, as Tio mentioned, and obviously at the federal level, we do have the tools to fight back. We have the resistance tools, as your dad always reminded us. first, I am somebody, and second, to keep hope alive. And so I do think that like this regime wins when we forget who we are and our genetic makeup. He likes to talk about genes all the time. It's like, no. The stock that we're from actually is a stock of resistance on this particular soil. So we are collectively, as Dr. Latrice mentioned, as long as we collectively come together, we are unstoppable and we can sort of face this, but it will not be an easy road. It is not a sprint. It is definitely a marathon, as it has been. So I would implore your listeners to just start reading about what some of the freedom fighters, the men and the women in this country on the soil have done. And to Tio's point, what some of our global diasporic brothers and sisters have done to fight the various regimes in their respective countries over time.
And your book?
One of my books, my latest book, is How to Build a Democracy, from Fannie Lou Hamer and Barbara Jordan to Stacey Abrams. But my first book is called Black Ethnics, Race, Immigration, and the Pursuit of the American Dream. And it looks at Black Americans, Africans, and Caribbeans and how we can have better collective action to get what we need politically.
And how can we access your podcast?
Just go to FAQ NYC. It's on Spotify, it's on Amazon, it's on wherever you get your podcasts. And it's hyper local, and we're interviewing all of the Democratic mayoral candidates. We might even get some of the independent and Republican ones if time permits, but we are asking hard questions, fair questions, but hard questions nonetheless, since the election is June 24th and just around the corner.
Well, we're going to keep in touch with you because you are a brilliant voice, an important voice. And that is what this is for. And never be shy about telling people about your books, your podcast. That's what I do here, because I figure that we're supposed to lift each other up on these platforms. What does my father say? Nobody will save us, for us, but us. He's come up with some good ones.
I'll have to find the T-shirt that I have that says "I am somebody" because my daddy's a Q. This is when your dad was running. We're at the. My dad's a Q. My dad's a Q's Q. As were my two uncles. My poor grandfather was a Sigma. But this is when your dad was running and he came to the conclave, and so we had our little purple and gold "I am somebody" T-shirts on.
Girl, when I got to Howard, I found me a purple and gold polo, and then I saw them step and went. I ran over to the Blackburn Center. I called my father. I said, "How could you be part of this fraternity, Daddy?" I said,
Listen, I gotta say, I have so many beautiful Q cousins, just girls from across the country that I gotta say, I do love Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. They gave me a whole extra family, so here we are.
Girl, please, child. I love the Qs. I am front now. I'm a Q girl.
Right.
I am.
Now listen, I keep them over there, but I still love the Qs.
Oh, yeah, I love them. I'm a Delta too. Amen. Ow. But I love you, and may God bless you. And of course, go to Spotify, wherever you can find a podcast, FAQ NYC, and every book by Professor Chrissy Greer. Pick it up. I want you to let MSNBC know that they need to give her a contract. Yeah, that's right. I said it. Be quiet. I said it. Because that's what they know. Because they need to get some more sane voices on there. And Tio Hardeman, your book one more time.
Yeah, Interrupting Gun Violence, the Public Health Approach. Okay, and then Dr. Greer, I know I have a lot of comrades in New York State. Okay, all over all the boroughs, everywhere in upstate New York, everywhere.
Well, Santita's going to put us in touch because I already have a list of people that I want you to be in touch with in New York.
Okay, and I'm going to connect you to Dr. LaShawn Latrice. She's got a tremendous background, let's say from the prison ground to higher ground. That is where she has been. And she has come out of all of this, a community psychologist, healing the whole community. And we thank God for her and the work that she does. So may God bless all of you. Next hour, let's talk about who trumps the presidency. Or the presidential branch, the executive branch. Vice President J.D. Vance says that we are supreme. The judiciary, get out the way. Is that how this is supposed to work?
Wow.
Okay.
Talk about it on the Santita Jackson Show next hour. God bless you, everybody. Stay right there.
God bless.